to the second annual Women's International Day 2024. I see so many amazing friends in the chat already. I am so honestly thankful that you could be here with us today in the chat. We're going to be starting the show and getting you involved in the conversation as well. If you don't know who I am Cindy Cohn. I'm also known as the Queen of Joy on LinkedIn. And my goal in life is just to continue to bring you and more joy and so to elevate your life. And with that said, I would love for you to meet my co-host for the second year in a row, Anca.
Woo! Where's the drum roll?
Betty that I didn't plan. Look.
Oh my gosh, you have sparkle. You are amazing, Cindy. I am so excited to get ourselves here started. First off, welcome everyone. This is such a special event. This is our second annual, like Cindy said, and we are super excited to be able to gather together for International Women's Day to engage in an honest conversation that's close to many of our hearts, but often sometimes it's just left in the shadows. My name is Anca Platon Trifan. I'm one of the hosts, and I am thrilled that you could join us to what promises to be an amazing discussion on a delicate dance between strength and vulnerability, especially as it pertains to high achieving women that many of you are as you're tuning in. In a world where success is often measured by how well we can mask our struggle and keep pushing forward, we are here to pull back the curtain and get real about the challenges that lie beneath the surface. So today, we're going to talk about all of it openly and without judgment. Before we jump in and pass the mic over to my lovely, joyous co-host, Cindy, I would love to just go quickly down the memory line for a second about what is International Women's Day and when did it begin. Now, if you're not aware, actually it began in the early 20th century, and it was rooted in women's movement that wanted to better themselves, better their working conditions, and their suffrage. First observed in 1911, it's now celebrated globally on March 8. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of countries that celebrate March 8 as Mother's Day. One of those countries is Romania, where I come from, and is a day of celebration, of raising awareness about gender equality and advocates for women's rights. And today we want to give women a voice the same way it has being done, what the purpose of this holiday of celebration has been all along, and recognize some of the contributions to the society that women make that many times just go unnoticed. And I would love to welcome you to our discussion. Love to have this a space for everyone to share, learn, and shed light on the fact that it's perfectly okay to not always be okay. We're here to explore the power of being vulnerable and authentic, to share our stories and strategies for navigating the complexity of life, work, and to affirm that even in our struggles, there's immense growth and strength to be found. So thank you for being here, for showing up, not just for this conversation, but for yourselves and for each other. So let's lean into this moment together and start changing the narrative about strength, about vulnerability. Obviously, I have a hard time saying that out loud, so I'm going to try to avoid saying the word, but I mean it. And with that, pass the mic back to my beautiful friend here, Cindy, who's going to introduce now our amazing panel, Strong, High Achieving Women.
First, I want to say, Anca, that was so spot on, everything that you said. That is what we need to be talking about all the time, not just today. And that was so important that we're using our voices today to help the other women out there that may or may not use their voice or aren't ready to use their voice yet, but they're going to, because we're here to empower them. And it starts today, ladies. The time is now. And with that, I want to introduce our amazing panel, and literally all of you could have been up here. You will all inspire me every single day. But since we only have limited spots, I'm going to start with introducing Janice Cardinale first. She's going to come on and say a quick introduction. And before you start, Janice, I want to ask the chat, can you please tell us where you're from and What is your superpower? Your superpower could be anything from something personal, or you're great at designing interior decorating or whatever your superpower might be. I just like to see it, and we're going to be putting on comments onto the screen because we want this to be an interactive conversation that we all need to have together. So take it away, Janice.
Hello, my name is Janice Cardinelli. I'm here in Arizona. Although I do come from Toronto, Canada, I am the founder of Event Minds Matter, which is a community building brave spaces to amplify the conversation on our emotional health and wellness. And I feel very privileged to be here today and to be able to use my voice and my privilege to help and create, a better community through psychological safety training and mental health practices, new best practices.
Thank you, Janice. Let's bring on the screen next Tamika Snodgrass. Yay, Tamika!
Hey. Hey, everybody. I am so excited to be here. Anca and Cindy, this is a fabulous event. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Tamika Snodgrass, and I'm an executive and business coach for female entrepreneurs and business leaders. And I just help them to build unwavering confidence and advance in their careers and business with authenticity. Why? So they can live with joy and happiness. That's what I'm passionate about doing. So glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Let's bring on Sally Arkell
I'm so excited as well because we've already got an international audience watching us. So this is exciting. Welcome, everybody. I'm Sally, and I am from Vancouver in Canada. So I'm on the West Coast, and I have the beautiful privilege of being able to work with women over 50 to really get back in touch with their power, their purpose, their passion, and their joy. And I found that there's so many of us that are sitting in a space where we're just feeling like we've done everything for everybody else. And now what's next for us? So I get to embrace that. And I know as you're working through the panel today and you're meeting everybody, you're going to just see the greatness that has come forward from every one of the women. And hopefully that will inspire you as well on your journey.
Thank you, Sally. That is so awesome. And next, let's bring on Eva Lindell for her second round because she was here last year too. Woo!
Hey everybody, happy International Women's Day. My name is Evelyn Dell. I'm a communications and brand strategist. I work with women and minority-owned businesses to help amplify their unique value and communicate directly to their target market. Super excited to be here. This is going to be an amazing conversation today.
Absolutely, it always is. Next, I want to bring up Tori Whitley.
Hey everyone, I am Tori. I am from Dallas, Texas. I am the person that jumped off the Segway in Italy, the one that accidentally landed on the Outcast bus at a festival. And I also am a job seeker looking for a job in the leave of absence realm.
Thank you, Tori. Next, I want to bring up Shannon Baylor Henderson. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Happy Girls Run the World Day, everyone.
Yeah, girl, that's what you said.
My name is Shannon Baylor Henderson, and I am the Chief Content Officer and Storyteller for Content Commanders, where we specialize in adding more power, personality, and perspective to a brand's digital, print, and social media messages. I'm a DC girl living in a North Carolina world, and I am very happy to be here.
Oh my goodness. Cindy's bringing the joy. I love it. I love it. What a great, great way to start our event. All right, Cindy.
All right. So we're going to tee off with question number 1 today. And again, y'all join in the conversation. We're going to put your comments on the screen, and if there's questions, we're also going to answer them the best that we can. We have all been to the barrel and back. We've been in your shoes, other shoes, and the thing that we are all alike in is that we're here today and we've overcome, and we're still elevating, and we're still learning, and we're still evolving, and we just want to empower you to do the same. So we're just cheering you on. So with that said, I want to bring up question number one. And the question is, how have you been able to navigate the balance between showing up your true self and maintaining your professional strength, given traditional environments that we all live in, and staying authentic? It's kind of there is that hard line for a lot of people. I would love to call on you for this.
All right. So we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes for everyone that is not aware. And we're trying to make sure that everyone is included in the conversation. So keep posting those amazing things. I will try to put them on the screen as they come. And I love how many of you are sharing your superpowers. And that is a way in which you shine. And I am going to speak a little bit about the power of being authentic and being vulnerable, in the sense that that can give you a voice in a space that maybe before you didn't feel like you had a voice. My growing up journey is marked by a lot of adversity from a very young age, which kind of made me and forced me to shield my little tender heart and build walls around it and show up as this tough, impenetrable person, because I've been taught from an early age that I need to hide my vulnerability, because that was seen as a weakness, to stop the tears, to silence the complaints. It was all about survival, about being strong in a world that didn't see the value in softness. But over the years, through writing, which has become my outlet, I found this safe sanctuary, a place where I can lower these walls and I can explore some of the depths of my heart that I didn't even know that I had. It was this journey of rediscovery, of allowing myself to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to be able to feel the full spectrum of emotions that I had denied myself for so long. I had to also overcome the fear of actually showing up and as I am, like without hiding of who I am as my authentic self. And this is when I decided to start this series of posts on weekends. Now, over the duration of a week, I would post, everything that has to do with business, growing business, connecting with my ideal client, all of that thing. But on a weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, I started posting those personal posts and share some of the things that I always wanted to talk about, but I was afraid to. And what happened in the process, it surprised me actually, because not only it revealed this tenderness that I had in my heart, but also it brought forth a lot of people that were able to relate to some of the things that I was going through, and they were able to now speak to that and feel encouraged and feel brave enough to address the same things that I was addressing. So I guess there's really such a value in showing yourself as you are and being vulnerable, and it's about mutual respect and trust. And obviously I'm not for oversharing without boundaries. There has to be some boundaries. But I have a high belief in being open, in being able to be vulnerable and show incredible strength, because that lies in our ability to relate and lean on each other and give and receive support. So that's been my story, and I stick by it. And I would love to hear if anybody else has different experiences in which they showed up as they are, and how did that play out, and how did that impact the environment they were in.
I love what you said, Anca, and I just wanted to add to that. When I first started showing up here on LinkedIn, my goal was to just be a more visible woman and to actually share my own thoughts, my own ideas, not representing the company that I worked for, but just being me. And one of the things that the guru said is don't talk about personal things, specifically your faith. And so I shied away from doing that, which did not feel very authentic at all. And so I decided to just go for it and be myself. So on Sundays, I actually share a prayer because I love praying for people around the world. I think it's so powerful. And what I decided is it doesn't matter what other people think. This is a part of me. My faith is a big part of who I am. And if I lose followers because of it, that's okay. Those are not my people. I'm not for everybody, and everybody is not for me. But what has happened is the right people are drawn to me. So the people that understand that faith is important, maybe it's important to them too, and they don't care if I talk about it. In fact, they love it. And they reach out to me in my DMs and say, hey, I love that prayer that you shared this morning. That really spoke to my heart. And that's what I'm trying to do. I just want to uplift, encourage, and support other people around the world, and especially women. I love empowering other women.
I
So,
love that. Tamika, literally, I was sitting here and the exact words you said was the exact words I was going to use. Literally, like,
amazing.
imagine that. That's why we're friends, right?
That's why.
So, with that, I want to let everyone know my superpower relates to this conversation. I feel my superpower is I allow people and encourage people to be their authentic selves because I love people for who they are. I celebrate you no matter what. Like, I don't care about anything. And people who know me know that I embrace all of it, all of the good, ugly, everything. And that's why people are attracted to me because I love you just the way you are. You do not need to change. And if people don't love me, one thing I didn't learn until I was like 50, sorry, but is that not like you said, Tamika, not everyone is for you and you're not for everybody. And guess what? That's actually okay. Whereas and it's more than okay. But I didn't know that till I was so much older. And like I lived all these years with that, like not being my authentic self because I was afraid maybe people wouldn't like me. And you know what? You attract your tribe when you're authentic and people love you and the right people come into your life. And it's like, oh, that is where it's at, people. If you learn nothing else today, I say this probably in every post, but it's so important to sooner than later, like today, be you. The end. Be you. And I promise you, everything falls into place.
I love that. So I guess my question to our panel is what are some practical ways in which we can become more comfortable with showing our true selves, especially in environments that traditionally value that ideal of strength and stoicism, which I had to overcome in my own journey?
I think one of the things that has helped me over the years, well, for one, I'll take it back. So I think I have a unique circumstance because my mom and my grandmother are both very authentic. They were always very authentic women. They always were go getters and were never afraid to do things. My mom has done like amazing things. She's always never afraid to take a chance and always creating new businesses and just doing what she loves. But I think for me, as I got older, one of the things I had to remember was to go back to my childlike self. So if we think about it, children and animals are authentic. They will tell you whether they like you or not. They'll tell you if you are ugly. They'll tell you if you stink. All of those things. Children are so authentic. And I think when as we get into this world, there's so many different voices and we're trying to all be the same when we really just need to be who we were in the beginning. We need to be authentic. And I think for me, going back to that and being able to embrace those things and embrace the beginning and the simpleness of life has made me okay with being a little bit more authentic in every single thing that I do.
Fantastic. Well said, Evelyn. All right. So, Cindy, I think we're going to touch now into a topic that I know is super close to your heart, and that has to do with identity beyond work. And we have a lovely panelist here that I would love to speak to that a little bit as she's going through her own challenges and just be open and honest as we're trying to all be here. I feel like many times when we put our identity in our professional life, when that goes away, I know I have over COVID, right? Like I started questioning everything about myself. And for anyone that's been in that situation, how can women, individuals start to separate their self-worth from their professional achievements or hobbies, especially in society that often defines us but what we do? Tori, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, and I actually have a story that even goes back a little further. About 7 years, I took a DNA test and found out that my dad wasn't my dad, and my mom wouldn't tell me who the person was. And I was just so surprised. It completely pulls your foundation down. And you've really got to think about who you are because it's no longer familial. It wasn't at the time. I was actually coloring hair, which I love, but I love being in corporate more, which is why I came back. But when things like that happen, you go back, and the only thing that you have to hang on to is who you are. And what you bring to the table. And you've got to be strong enough to push that everything else aside. And so when it came to jobs, you know, being back in corporate for only 5 years has been really humbling. You know, here I am in my 50s, and my last supervisor, when I talked to her, she was like, "Oh, my mom's the same age as you." And so when you start going through stuff like that, you start definitely realizing that maybe your job isn't tethered to who you are. And so in the job hunt, it's been easy for me to pull away from that, but it's a choice. You know, a lot of people in the job hunt have a really difficult time trying to figure out who they are if they're not working. And you do need to put thought into it, but you also need to be very definitive with yourself and just say, I'm not, that's not who I am. I don't, I am going to be the person that I want to be. And I'm going to keep going forward every day and be that person. And that may not have anything to do with your job, because you might be looking for something else.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's just what you have in your soul.
I love
Absolutely.
that, Tori.
I saw someone like totally going like this over this when you started sharing. Shannon, you got to say something. What was that all about?
I just put it in the chat. And Tori, it's just so interesting because your vulnerability and your authenticity just connected us in the most wild way. I have the same story. I took a DNA test and found out that my dad isn't my dad. And it began to reshape my identity. And so just those magical, transparent moments are the things that help us step outside of our shell. Who would have known, number one, that you and I shared a similar story, but who also would have known that that moment in our lives cracks a different part of the shell of who we are, the things that we hold within and that are holding us back. So it drove me wild that you shared that.
Yeah, and you know, and then my dad actually showed up a year later, and so then that again cracks your identity, because he landed on Ancestry DNA, and he didn't know he had a child, or me. He has other kids, but he didn't know he had one that was like 10 years older than his others.
I was just going to say, and that speaks to identity, because I think a lot of us walk around identifying as one thing for a very long time. We get connected to these titles and these roles and these locations and these looks and everything. And then something chisels away at that shell and says, this isn't all of who you are. There's something else underneath the surface that you don't know or you haven't tapped into. And once you crack that shell a little bit more, you're going to expose yourself to someone you didn't know who you were. And it's the magic of constant evolution.
And
It
that's
I
is.
what
love that.
taps into your strength. That's when you know you're strong. That's when you say, okay, F all of this. I am not these things. I am me, and I'm beautiful, and I'm worthy,
Yes.
and I can be in these situations and still be strong.
Absolutely.
Abs-
And Cindy, I know you had a story about you leaving the pharma world.
Yeah, I was
Do
going to
you want
share
to
that
speak to
today.
that really quick?
Yeah, I do. So much of everything you all said have just been unbelievably touching my heart in so many ways. And thank you all in the comments. The comments are blowing up. We have like over 300 people here, and all the women are relating to what we're talking about. This is a conversation that doesn't need to happen just once a year. Can I say that louder for people in the back? Okay. Now, back to I was laid off from pharmaceuticals in about 2018-ish, and I identified myself as a pharmaceutical rep making a lot of money, and I thought, I was all that and a bag of chips, and then I lost my job. And then I was like, wait, I'm like nothing right now. And for a half of a second, because I didn't wallow in it, because I've evolved by then, I was like, I'm not going to just sit home. I want to have fun. So I went and I got a job slinging wine at a local winery. Okay, I was working with people that were like, younger than me, and, just different mindset sometimes, and but you know what? it was the best job I ever had, I think. It was so much fun. The main thing why I think it was also is that I realized that I wasn't tied to an identity. I didn't have to make a lot of money to be happy. I didn't have to have a certain whatever title, whatever. I just had so much fun being my freaking self that changed everything for me. And it was like, you know what? Thank you for being laid off. Thank you for this, because sometimes when we're in the valley, you have a choice of how you're going to look at it, right? You could look at it, have a pity party, poor me. Oh my God, I can't do that. That's not the way to look at it. Look at it as I am in a valley. What do I have to learn? What can I do while I'm waiting in this valley? And make it fun, and you'll find out so much more about yourself, and that changed everything for me. So that's my little bit of a story. So sling wine, people.
You know
And it's
what,
okay to be a
Cindy?
bag of chips, and some more. Somebody said in the comment, you are so much more than that, my friend. And I love that so much. Now, let's move forward with some strategies in which we can all cultivate a sense of identity that is independent of our job titles, of our roles, of the things that we do. And how can we do that in our personal and professional lives? And I would love to have Sally jump on this really quick. Let's hear from you, Sally.
Sure, I can absolutely relate to what the last few ladies have talked about, because I used to be a leader with a bunch of entrepreneurs in the finance industry. And there were some really big egos. And what I recognized within that is that their whole life revolved around their work. Everything they did outside of the workplace was also to get new clients, to schmooze, to do all those types of things. And so they also had the big houses and everything else to make sure that people could see that success. And what I've always understood, having been a leader in many organizations, was that there's something that is missing in their lives that they're not cultivating. And oftentimes that would lead to divorces, it would lead to all sorts of, distress and things like that within their lifestyles, yet they were still attached to that work. So one of the things that I've worked really hard on, my husband worked out of town a lot when I was in the corporate world, and we had one son. So I really had to shut off at the end of the day. So one of the things that I made an intentional focus on was that I had to be present in the moment wherever I was with my son, because I was basically the single mom while dad was out traveling the world with his career, which we supported, which was fabulous. And yet I had a really high powered career at the same time. But I remember one time my husband's friend was over visiting us, and he knew what type of position I was in. And he said to me at one time, he says, well, I don't get it. Why, like, you're such a high powered woman in the workplace and you're just so normal at home. And that to me was a big aha for me. And that's when my son was about a grade 2. And it was like, yay, that's what you need to do. You need to be able to be present with the people that are in your life at that time. And you need to understand that there's more to life than that career. I've pivoted through a number of different careers in my lifetime. And when I left the corporate world at the end of 2019, I made a choice of leaving the corporate world because I wasn't feeling valued by the company for what I was offering at that time. So I made the choice to take back that control of my life. And in doing so, what I found was that I was able to create what I wanted and really get back in touch for who I am, what my purpose and vision is, and get away from all that stuff that the company told me I needed to be and do. So I think that's one of the things that I would highly suggest is really think about what do you need to be present with in the moment in your life.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sally, for sharing. I would love to pivot a little bit, talking about pivoting, because I feel like I've pivoted so many times in my life that I'm sick of the word. So I have to find another word now and use. But when you're in the middle of doing all of those things, I think there is a high chance that you will experience overwhelm. You're going to experience stress, you're going to experience anxiety, and a slew of other emotions that are related into that. So I would love to hear from Tamika, what are some effective daily practices or habits that can help us manage feelings of overwhelm and reduce that stress and anxiety in our busy lives?
Yes. Oh my goodness. That's a great question and one that I can relate to so much. I worked for over 30 years in the banking industry, predominantly in corporate banking, and I was doing all of the things. I didn't even know that I was overwhelmed or stressed. And what happened for me was during that time, towards the end of my career, because I, of course, walked away and became a coach and started my own business. But what happened was that my in-laws and my parents all started to fall ill around the same time. And so while I was managing this demanding banking career, while I was being a wife, while I was being a mom, I was also cooking meals for my in-laws and running back and forth and taking care of them and helping my parents. My mother had Alzheimer's and dementia, and then my dad was diagnosed with cancer. It was just like the world came crumbling down. But I thought I was doing fine. I thought I was handling it all. And one day I ran to the hospital because I got a call that my mother-in-law had a massive stroke. And I was literally running down the hospital hallway when my legs turned to rubber and I slid to the ground. I could not feel my legs. It felt like forever. I'm sure it was only for a minute or so. And a nurse happened to be coming down that way, and I was on the floor, and she got some help, got a wheelchair, got me up. My husband, who was coming to see his mother, ran through the door, and he was expecting to see his mom, and who does he see? His wife in a wheelchair. That was an eye opener for me that I needed to have a sense of self awareness because this could happen to anyone. I thought I was doing it all. I was like Superwoman. I
Mhm.
can take care of myself. I can take care of everybody else. I can take care of my kids. I can do all the things. But my body had to tell me otherwise. My body literally shut down on me. Okay. And so for an entire year, I probably went to the hospital more than 10 times. I never have been to the hospital in my whole life. I've always been very healthy, but I had stress induced vertigo. And so I would begin to have anxiety attacks. I'd be in a meeting and all of a sudden sweat would start pouring from my scalp down my face and onto my clothes. I went through it and I had to go to the hospital over and over because they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They didn't know what it was. And I just thought I was dying. In fact, one day my husband came home from work and I was literally laying on the floor face down because I needed to touch the ground. And my husband said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "Don't let me die." And he had to rush me to the hospital right then. I was just in a constant state of panic. But what helped me to get through it was a sense of self awareness and putting myself first. Somebody said something about setting boundaries. I had to learn to set boundaries for myself. I can't do it all, and that's okay. I'm not strong all the time, and that's okay too. I need help sometimes, and that's okay to ask for it. Okay, I'm a human being. I need support. I need encouragement. I need a little love sometimes too. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that self awareness really helped me. The other things that helped, like I said, setting those boundaries, being able to say no, ask for help when I needed it, seek support. I have an amazing circle of close friends and also my community here on LinkedIn. But I wasn't taught to ask for help. I'm always the strong one. I was taught to be strong, suck it up, buttercup, get through it. No, I need help sometimes too. So I needed to learn how to seek support and be vulnerable and tell people I'm not okay today. I need help today. And then the last one is, I would say, to practice that authenticity and being who I really am, because the person that I was on the outside was not the person that I was on the inside. On the outside, I was corporate Tamika. I was the person I go to work, I meet my goals, I do all the things. On the inside, I was heartbroken. Everybody that I loved was sick and dying and I wasn't talking about it. So those are the practical tips that I would share. Practice self-awareness. Be in touch with your own thoughts, your own feelings. Set boundaries. Say no sometimes and say yes to yourself, you
Yes.
know. And included in that is just that self-care, taking care of yourself. Seek support, ask for help when you're not feeling okay. There's no shame in that. We all need help sometimes. And then practice being your authentic self. Speak up, express yourself. The last thing I want to say, Anka, because I know in the interest of time, I need to be quiet, but do something for yourself first thing every morning. have those non-negotiables. And for me, my non-negotiables, first thing every morning when my feet hit the floor, prayer. That's what I do for myself to fill my cup. Prayer, meditation, exercise, and then hydration. Get that water in. Those are the 4 things I do every day. The number 5 is coffee. I have to have a cup of coffee every single day after exercise and water. And that's it. Love on yourself, because as RuPaul says, anybody familiar with RuPaul? As RuPaul says, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else if you can't love yourself? All right.
You heard it
Ain't
here,
that
folks,
true?
people. You heard it here first. Woo! I am pumped up, Tamika.
Yes.
That was incredible. You gave some amazing tips. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, Cindy, I guess I'm going to take on this really quick. I was going to share
Okay.
really quick. First off, thank you so much for everyone in the chat. If you guys don't know, there's over 200 comments going on in the chat right now, and it's amazing the conversation that's being had. There was a question as well that we're going to come down to a little later. But what I wanted to share really quick on this is when for me, when it comes to overwhelm and burnout, and when it comes to recognizing the early signs of burnout, and going into those steps that Tomika just shared about what you do to overcome it, for me is my biggest red flag is the loss of creativity. When I start feeling uninspired or unable to come up with a fresh, new idea, I know that it's time to take action. And just like it has already been said, and it's already being preached in the chat, prioritizing self-care, setting boundaries, seeking support, those are my main go-tos. Taking breaks, practicing mindfulness, reassessing the workload, and asking for help in the places that you don't have to do it all. That's what's going to help you get physically and mentally healthy. Now, about that, I wanted to touch a little bit on the mental health. And I have someone here that's been very, very passionate about this. And I want Janice to speak a little bit to this topic of mental health and how overwhelm and stress and burnout, it really affects it in ways that we're not even able to. Like my sign, like I said, is loss of creativity. I want to hear from Janice on this. And what are some ways in which, Janice, we can take immediate steps so that we overcome this and find our happy place again?
Thank you very much, Anca. And of course, this is a very important topic and one that I've been passionate about. And I must wish all of the women who are online today from my community, and I appreciate that. But why is it that women are often handed a lollipop instead of a cup of tea? I think one of the biggest problems within the industry that we're in is the fact that there are no spaces to have conversations that are calm and that really bring out, the situation of how somebody is feeling. We throw around the words kindness and empathy and, belonging, but in fact, we have not created that environment in a caring culture at our workplaces. And I think this is the greatest thing that we have to really pay attention to in the future, because things will continue to happen that raise people's stress levels, that will overwhelm them, that will cause burnout. And that is really the reason why, I founded, and then with a group of like-minded professionals, Event Minds Matter, because we know that education, resources, and initiatives are critical to the future of our next generation of industry professionals. And that's why we really did start Event Minds Matter, was for the next generation, because we already know that they are not going to do or work like we did. I'm someone who started early. I have 3 children. I remember going, to work every day and just, multitasking. And yeah, after many years, I was exhausted. And I also recognize the fact that my work did not define me. I've always been an entrepreneur, but the fact of the matter is, I have so much more to give than just what I did. And that's also another reason why today I'm very involved in building my legacy, because I don't want people to remember me for the great talent I sold or the accessories that I was involved. What I really want is people to remember me because was on a mission to create something better for the next women who are coming up the ladder. And that's that's really what, Event Minds Matter is about. The other thing about Event Minds Matter, which is very important to note, is that we believe that psychological safety training should be mandated in the industry. And I say that because you can get all the benefits in the world, but you still have to come back to the same place to work every day. And if a culture has not been created within your workspace, that becomes a huge problem, because you're siloed in getting your therapy, but you're coming back to a situation that could be in fact toxic, that's not really set up for those brave conversations. And I think that that's, a big thing that we have to consider. And yes, boundaries, expectations, we have to learn to deal with that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Janice, for
Okay,
sharing.
can I add something to that?
Yes, absolutely. Go
I
ahead.
love what you said, and I think it's very telling about cultural differences. And I speak about this all the time. People don't acknowledge, I think, a lot of the cultural differences. One of the things that I've experienced with being a coach, I've worked with a lot of people who either have immigrated to this country and that work in corporate, or women who are working in corporate that are trying to find their voice. And two examples stood out to me. One, I had a coaching client that was from another country, and I remember one day he said to me, he said, "You guys are different here. He said, you work differently." And I wanted to dig into that a little bit. And right after that, in the same day, I had another coaching client who's a woman, and I remember when I logged on, I could see her visibly. She was just distraught. She was just stressed out. And I said, before we get into the meat and potatoes of it, of why we're here, is there anything you want to share? And she said, "I'm just tired." She said, "I am really tired." And I asked her, "Have you had these conversations with your supervisor?" And she said, "I don't feel like I can." She said, "I'm the only woman on my team, and I feel as though I'm going to be penalized for needing to take the time out to take care of my husband and my children." And we should never have to pick and choose whether we are going to take care of our personal lives or our professional lives. And unfortunately, it's frowned upon in our culture. One of the tools that we always use within that coaching community, there's two books. It's the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 and the Strength Finder. And it encourages people to find out which way you are best at communicating. And two of the things that I always tell my coaching clients, don't be fooled by a bad day. It doesn't define your life, but also do not be fooled by a good day also, because there are ebbs and flows all the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that, Evelyn. It's so important. I mean, as someone that I'm an immigrant to this country, as someone that actually worked as a pregnant lady in an industry that's male dominated until my 40th week, literally my water broke at work. And then I was back to work 2 weeks later after a C-section, because I was exactly in that position where I didn't have a voice and I didn't feel like I could go and say, I need more time with my baby. And there's so many things to unpack there. And why was I doing that? Because I'm a driven woman, and I was like, I can do it. Is it right? Should all women do that? No, 100%. Find your voice, talk about it, and also make a way for other women to have better conditions. And I can go crazy on this, so maybe I should just stop. What I want to touch on next, right? Cindy knows.
No,
Really,
it actually is important. Janice brought up legacy, and this is kind of a continuation into that,
yes.
which is so important to all of us. How we're going to maybe not all of us, but to me, legacy is very front and center in my life, and how I want to be remembered and what do I want to leave the world with. So I love how you said that, like, ladies, we have to use our voices. The time is now. It's not tomorrow, it's today. And we all need to continue to. It was interesting. I was talking to someone, she's like, I can't even think of a woman really that empowers other women. And I was like, that is so sad. Like, we all should be able to easily name 50 women that empower other women. Like, we're a team, people. We are team women. And that's how I want the world to be. And again, we could go into a whole nother rabbit hole, but with social media and what that's doing to our young daughters and young children, like, if we don't make a stand and stop it and create a legacy for them, who's going to?
Well, and legacy includes vulnerability, because if you're going to leave a legacy, it's because you did the tough things, and nobody knows those things until you tell them.
Legacy also means something different to everybody.
Yeah.
It really depends on, where you came from, what experiences you've had. It also goes back to our grandmothers, mothers, sisters, all the females in our life who've impacted us in one way or another. But I do believe that legacy is extremely important, because one day when you're not around, what do you want people to remember about you?
Absolutely. I mean, I know for me, if there's one thing that keeps me up at night is what kind of impact am I going to live in this world? And there's a lot of other things that could be keeping me up at night, but those are not the things. Not having to pay the bills or having to do the things, this and that. It's that impact, that how are we going to leave an impact, and how is it going to be meaningful for not just my children, but for the people that come after me. And I love that we got into this. So I'm curious, because this is something that is more to be talked about. How can we start to think about a legacy that we want to leave behind, and take some actionable steps today to begin building towards that lasting impact? And since I had you, Janice, on that, if you want to add a few more thoughts, and then I would love to have someone else share on this topic really quick.
Legacy for me also came at a stage of life where I was making a decision after COVID as to what I wanted to do. I'm probably the eldest here in this crowd, but the truth of the matter is that I have always cared about people. So for me, naturally, what I ended up wanting to do after COVID was try to change certain things with regards to people's emotional health and well-being, because I recognize that that was one of the greatest impacts that happened to just about every one of us. And I think that this problem is growing. I think that we are in a crisis of women, men who are struggling, to be honest with you. And I think that, it's one thing to preach, which we've been doing for the last 2 years, but we have to action this. And if the leaders, in our industry are not going to prioritize emotional health and well-being, then we have a problem, and we have to come together and action it.
Action, yes.
I can add to that as well. What I found was when I left my corporate career at the end of 2019, I knew there was something missing from how even in corporations we were working with our teams. We were blanket training everybody on the same things, but yet they weren't getting the results. Two people would never get the same results because one would have a whole different mindset and expectation and background that they were bringing forward. And so one of my things that I did was I really sought out what was the difference between people that could succeed and people that failed, but then also what I could do to transform everybody to have the same incredible results and feel so confident about themselves, and to make that transformation so they could live out their dreams and have that legacy for their family. Because I think so many people today get so stuck in the fears, the worries, the doubts, and they live in their mind in that feeling. And as we know, that feeling translates into our bodies and causes us to have that action reaction. And when that happens, we prevent ourselves from moving forward. And so in everyday circumstances, we can be driving to work and say, I'm going to be late for work today. The traffic sucks. And yet we could either sit back and just say, you know what, it's going to open up and I'm just going to put on my favorite tunes and I'm just going to drive to work. It's little things like that we can do to not only teach ourselves, but also to leave that legacy for generations to come. Because when we change internally and change our mindsets and how we're reacting to situations, we can now change the legacy of the generations to come. And it can go on.
I agree with that. And I'll just add one more thing. I'm a strong believer that leaders today, no matter whether you're female or male, your job is to teach, coach, and mentor. And a lot of people don't necessarily do that in their leadership positions. And that's a very, very important paramount that we have to get to.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Cindy, what I actually wanted to put you on the spot right now is because I feel like you can't talk about legacy without actually going into true calling. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about how do you find your true calling? How do you overcome some of the common obstacles that people feel like they face? And how do you get to live a purpose-driven life so that you can then leave this legacy that we're talking about?
Well, it's so funny. And again, none of this show was pre-rehearsed or anything. So I had no idea Anca was going to ask me that right now. And she has no idea that what I'm about to share. So it's probably now like 12 to 13 years that I have a book in my nightstand that's unfinished, and it's about legacy. And I don't share that with anyone. And I have it all outlined and things like that. But the few people that I've showed it to, like what it's going to be about, they're like, oh, that's heavy. That's too deep. Like, you're not ready for that yet. That was like 3 years ago when I got that feedback. But the premise of the book I want to share, and again, it's in my nightstand, is that picture yourself at your funeral. Okay, I know that might be morbid to some people. It's not to me. Like my family, my friends, people close to me, they know what songs to play, what to feed everyone, what to drink, what's the whole party's planned. Okay, and it's because, but if you want something, you have to go backwards to get it. So if I want people to stand up and be like, Cindy really impacted my life by when no one else was there, she gave me this, that, whatever, then I have to live that today, yesterday, last month. Okay. So that's what the book's about, living out your legacy and starting where you're at today, that it's never too late. So you can start today. So all that to say, the legacy, again, a lot of people don't even think about their legacy. And to me, we all, not all, but some people have kids and they're like, well, I just want to leave a legacy to my kids. Okay, that's great. But also let's look at bigger humanity. We're all actually here for a purpose, or we wouldn't be here. So think about a little bit bigger than just your familia, and think a little bit outward into the world and the humanity. And like, you have such gifts. You were designed for greatness. You have so much already inside you, untapped, a lot of it, that you can use and impact the world. You're one decision away from doing it. You're one fear away from doing it. You're one everything away from doing it. And so I'm a big believer, you hear me talk about it all the time, in baby steps. I don't care if you take the tiniest, littlest step forward in something, but do that just a little bit, because those tiny, tiny steps, they add up to huge mountains and leaps. And books that I've written, like, and all I did is send one email that day, one page, one this. Like, I did not momentous in one day. So it's all about taking those little steps towards your legacy.
You know, you were talking about true calling, and I stumbled on mine accidentally. I told you about the stuff with my dad, with my dad's. But then I also had a son that I raised that was suicidal his whole life. And so I went through a lot of really interesting things, and moving from corporate to hair to raise my son as a single mom. I thought that those things, I thought that they might hold me back. And what I ended up finding out is that it created my true calling. I am a writer, a vulnerability writer. I am somebody who shares my story so that others don't feel so alone. And I bare my soul in a way that a lot of other people won't, especially on LinkedIn. You know, we want to call it a business this and a business that. But in the end, we're all humans, and we have days where we're going to look at a post like that and go, oh my God, I needed that. Somebody else is going through something like I am. And our true callings are far outside of our work, but we have to find them.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Tori, for sharing that. And I want to come back to something that was said earlier before we got into true calling, and that is mentorship. I feel like that will wrap up our conversation, because all of this is great, but we are also women in different stages of our lives. And if you have come this far, I'm pretty sure there is someone in your life that has helped you along the way, has mentored you. If you have not, I feel really, really bad, because I know I have experienced no mentors for a very long time before I went outside of my comfort zone and seek mentorship. Mentorship is such an important, pivotal role in leaving a legacy, especially in places and spaces. Like, for example, I come from a very male-dominated field. That's where I feel like there's so much lack of representation for women. And I have made it my own goal to mentor those women that are coming into this field. I started communities and I started reaching out to those women to be able to help them along the way there is a space for you here, even though it seems like unwelcoming, but somebody has to show them the way and take their hand and just guide them. And I want to speak to that because without mentoring, without adding that value to our lives, I don't know where would I have been right now without having that in my life. So as we come to a close here, as we're looking to foster a culture of collaboration and mentorship that can really inspire the next generation of women to reach their full potential, I would love to hear your thoughts on how can we make that happen in a way in which we can amplify other women's values and the impact that they wish to live in the world without feeling like it's like a cutting throat competition all the time.
I think you have to just be very open to the fact of maybe deciding that you want to do it. I remember when I had my former business, and I have always sat as a board chair at a college for event management and creative design. And I used to ask other producers, event people, if they would take on a student. And often, and this was back in, 2018, 19, they would say, no, they're too busy. Well, now everybody's busy. So what happens? Do you just not mentor? I mean, I don't, you have to get to a certain stage where, yes, you do have the time and you do want to take somebody on. It's not about taking a lot of people, take one person on, but there are a lot of people out there, not just young people, but older people too, who really want that opportunity to speak to you. And I always leave my door open. That's the only thing I know how to do. I would never say no to anybody. So it's something that comes within you. And for me, it's part of my DNA.
Anca, I think we could segue now to the end question. And we'll go around and around robin. And I also want the chat, if you're here in the chat, I'm asking you to do the same. So what we're each going to do is we're going to choose one person from LinkedIn who you feel empowers and elevates women and that you want to acknowledge them so that other people in the chat can also follow them. And so I will start with mine. And I am going to say, I have so many women, honestly, like I am blessed. I have so many women that I can choose for this, but she is fairly new in my circle, and her name is Ashley Beck. I'm gonna her name, but it's like Cueller, Cuellar. Ashley Beck Cueller. If you're here, can you say so in the comments so people can follow you? She is like the best hype woman, and I love freaking hype women. So yeah, connect with her. Janice, do you have someone to mention?
It's really funny, and I guess this comes with age and stage, but I have somebody who I have a great deal of respect for, who unfortunately just passed away, and her name is Marin Bright, and she was the publisher of Smart Meetings magazine. And the one thing her and I have in common is we both love butterflies because they bring hope. But I want to say that she is and was a force to be reckoned with. She, was unselfish. She gave back to women all the time. And even in her awards, she's always celebrating women. And God bless her. I think about her every day.
Thank you. Sally?
I'm going to go back to a mentor I had in one of my careers, and her name is Jeray Buckley Cox. And she was just the most incredible, patient woman. She was in the US, I was in Canada. I was one of the directors within the organization. And she took me by the hand. And even when we had to go do presentations to corporate, she would be up in the hotel room with me the night before, fine tuning, showing me how to be more successful, guiding me step by step along the way, giving up her time so valuably. And I'll always remember that because it was such a special connection and such a special person that gave so much of herself to mentor me to have so much more success in my career. And I always go back to that.
I love that. People remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
Right? Maya.
Exactly.
My favorite quote.
Absolutely.
Anca, do you want
Right,
to
I am going to actually highlight someone in the chat that it has been my hype woman. And Danielle, if you're still around here, I'm putting you on the screen. So a quick story. Danielle and I actually connected. Danielle is an amazing woman in our local community of women leadership and women in business. And she's always been the behind the scenes woman that has put on those conferences for women and empowering women to step beyond their comfort zones and speak to their expertise and their knowledge. And we connected over a conference where I was speaking at, but I did not expect Danielle to spend so much time behind the scenes with each one of us, to be so attentive to our needs, to have conversations. I'm like, girl, how do you find the time to speak with 200 of those speakers that are on your docket right now? And I was so impressed with her diligence and her attention to detail. So I wanted to shout it out there. And she's like, and connect with Danielle. She's doing amazing thing in many communities, and I just wanted to throw you out there. So there you have it.
Fantastic. Tamika, who would you like to highlight today?
Oh my gosh, Cindy, I'm blessed too. I have so many amazing women in my community and in my close friendship circle that I surround myself with. But I am going to highlight my LinkedIn friend, Famia Hamden.
Yeah.
And Cindy, I think you may have connected us here on LinkedIn, as a matter of fact. And we live very close from each other, so we actually have gotten together in real life a few times, and I absolutely adore her. And what I love about Famia is her passion for building an inclusive community here on LinkedIn. I think you absolutely have to connect with her. Not only is she amplifying the voices of other women, but she amplifies all voices. She just has that ability to draw the right people into her tribe. And I'm extremely proud to be a part of her community and to have her a part of mine.
I love that.
That's exactly one of the people that I would have put up there for sure. But my hype person, I've got to hype Riley Blasdale, and I know a lot of you know him. He highlighted a woman in October every single day. He went to the SaaStr, their sales conference, as a guy that was really open to it. He's an ally, and he's one of the coolest people that you can follow on LinkedIn. So you definitely need to do it.
Agree. He is amazing.
So I'm going to break the rules, and I'm actually going to highlight two women, but I'm going to do it very quickly. First of all, and I cannot say this enough, I want to highlight Cindy first of all, because she and I have a special connection, and I have actually known Cindy for about 20 years. And I remember when we met, I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and she encouraged me to get back out there. And it was different from anything else I had received at that time, because she convinced me to get back out there on my terms. Not necessarily something that I had to do that was corporate. I didn't have to set the world on fire. She said, go out there and do things on your terms. So I wanted to just say that. But I also want to highlight my mom. I say this all the time, and I talk about her. And if you people are tired of me talking about her, too bad. My mom is my inspiration. She has showed me my entire life that women don't have to be defined by one thing. My mom has literally owned a construction company and a nail salon at the same time. She went back to school at the age of 50 years old to finish her degree in construction management. She did everything that the guys did. She was the oldest woman and the only Black woman in her department. So, of course, they noticed when she was missing, but she did everything. She went to China dish construction. She went into low-income neighborhoods and built houses. And she has constantly shown me that it is okay to try and try again and to figure things out, but also reminded me to do something outside of yourself and not just make it all about you, and bring other people along with you for the ride.
That says it all. That says it all. I love it. We're blessed to have her as a mom and a mentor.
Yes.
Shannon?
I have a list of people. I put some in the chat, but to abide by the rules, I'm going to have to select a dear friend of mine named Nicole Outlaw. She's based here in North Carolina. And I think one of the most powerful things about Nicole, not only is her advocacy for women and small businesses and her friendship, is that she's a cheerleader without being loud or without being overbearing or overpowerful. She knows once she becomes your friend or your ally, she knows your strengths and she knows how to stand in for you when you can't stand for yourself.
Oh,
And I think in
that.
friendship, in leadership, in corporate, you always need someone who is willing to stand in for you when you don't have the strength, the words, or the knowledge to do it for
Oh,
yourself. So I will highlight her.
I would love to meet her. She sounds amazing.
Beautiful.
All right, I'm going to hand it over to you, Anca, for any last
All
close.
right. Wow, what a conversation. I'm over there busy with all the comments, highlighting all the women. If everyone has a moment to actually drop their LinkedIn link, the chat on LinkedIn would be amazing. I actually dropped it on Facebook and on YouTube, but for some reason I'm not able from this end to put it in LinkedIn. So please feel free to do so. And as we're wrapping, if anybody still has questions or
Yeah.
would like to have a specific question to a specific panelist, please drop that in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to wrap up this amazing conversation. I am so joyous, and I started today with so many things on my on my mind and with so many to-do lists, and I feel like all of that have vanished because I have been able to be refilled by these conversations that were had. I am so empowered by everything that was said, and I hope everyone else feels the same. So as we wrap up things, we want each one of you to go around maybe and share one last thought, or maybe one last tip, one last piece of advice, one last empowering thought that you can leave us with. And feel free to just go around robin and do that.
I'll start with, I think one of the greatest things we all need to do is listen.
Okay, I can go next. I believe that we all have the potential to ask, what's next? What's next for me? And always look to the future of what you have the opportunity to create, because it's going to be beautiful.
Cindy, you touched on this quote, and it is my absolute favorite quote. And I want to leave everyone with this by Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget the way you made them feel. That is the foundation for how I live my life. And everyone can do that. We can all be positive, uplifting, encouraging, inspiring, motivating, and just be good to each other. So that's what I want to leave you with today, because it matters.
I loved you, Tamika, before today, but now I love you. We finish each other's sentences literally.
You might be my soul sister, right?
Like, wow. Yes, she's my favorite as well. And I just want to remind people today that we need to all check on people. Check on 3 people minimum per day. You don't realize that they are possibly hanging by a thread, and your little check-in that you think nothing of can actually save their life. The suicide rates are super high right now. People that you think are absolutely fine and like smiling, those are the ones you need to worry about too. Okay, check on everyone as much as you can. We all need each other. So that's really what I want to get across today.
Mine would be tune into your heart and be vulnerable and take those steps to do what you truly want and what you know your calling is. Sometimes we don't want to step out because we're afraid of what people are going to say or that we're not going to be good at it. You're not going to be good until you try, and then you try, and then you try.
That's right.
Mine is very simple. Think of the world outside of yourself. It's so much more out there.
I would have to say, don't force it to work. I think a lot of times we put a lot of force and effort into making something happen, and that's where stress and burnout and anxiety happens. Let it come naturally. Life is cyclical. It will come back around, whatever it is. It may not be your time, it may not be your place. Don't force it to work.
I love that. Who didn't go? Who didn't share? I think I have one more to go. That would be me. Is it me who didn't share? I think my last thought is, I would go with be bold. It's okay to be bold. In a world that a lot of people will tell you to be something or someone else, be yourself, and be bold about it. I think only when I was courageous enough and brave enough to be that, I found my true self, found my true calling, and I was able to speak from my own experiences like I own them, versus for the longest time I have been hiding from them because I was ashamed and I just didn't feel like I fit in this world that expects me to be a certain way. So be yourself, be bold, and thank you so much for everyone that has shared their wisdom in the chat. They have shared with each other. You hyped us up even as you were on the other side of the screen, just so you're aware. So I hope we see you next time on the same channel a year from now. I mean, what a day. Your energy, your stories, our panelists, you have really inspired all of us. So this is not goodbye. It's just a see you later. And next time we'll see you. We hope to be able to continue the conversation, this bold conversation, courageous conversation of how to show up as ourselves. And with that, happy International Women's Day to everyone,
Thank you all
everywhere.
so much. This was fantastic.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we're going to wrap up with our little song here, which, by the way, this little unicorn song, Dance, is written by my husband for my little one. So I'm going to start playing that because she loves it every time we play it. So it's on the stream and it's going to start now.
Oh.